Hey, everybody, my name is Sam Hoffman, and I am presenting on my research on the cohesiveness between film and theater. Okay, I'll wait. Are you joining us? Cool. Okay, so I'm presenting on the cohesiveness between film and theater, which I explored in my original multimedia production called Release, which was performed in the CFA April 11th through 13th. So, I don't know why the picture's not there, but my initial research questions kind of surrounded the whole, how can I combine these two media? How are they similar? How are they different? And how has it been done in the past? A few productions that I kind of researched included the Broadway production of Brief Encounters, which had actors kind of jump on screen from their time on stage, or used the screen as kind of a vehicle for moving scenery. So that was kind of something I explored with that. The National Theater production of Waves also used kind of film to enhance the entire environment of the theater. And so I kind of looked at what both media have like alone and to see what I can do to combine them. So basically what I kind of found was that cinema allows storytellers to break time and space. You could jump to any place, any time, and it could cut from perspective to perspective in an unimpressionable work of art. While theater is fleeting, it happens once, so if you guys didn't get to see it, sucks for you. But for the artist, it gives them a chance to kind of move on and kind of explore new stories, new characters, new impressions. So that was kind of where these like combined for me. So then I developed a set of methods kind of and thinking through it all kind of theoretically, but it didn't happen to kind of change until I talked with my advisor, Michael Kay, who is actually the theater arts major advisor in the College of Fine Arts. And I kind of got his impression from my initial proposal to him. And he kind of explained it that usually people use different media with theater to kind of enhance a story or bring it somewhere else, move on to the next thing. Like with a musical, you have a song to bring one scene to another. And that kind of got me thinking, I don't want to bring film to theater. I don't want the two to be separate. I want them to be interlocked. And that's kind of what I strove for with my writing. I did not want to write this production at all. But I ended up writing a draft over the summer. And from that draft, I wasn't really able to leave it because it was already in my voice. When I got some help from two playwrights in the College of Fine Arts, they told me, you can't change this. This is your voice. So I kept with it, kind of improved it, workshopped it as that screenshot of the video is from. We workshopped the piece and how it could work. And STAMP, which is the Senior Theater Arts Majors production course, is their own kind of theater company for the Senior Theater Arts Majors. And they kind of work together to produce a season of theater. And they kind of added me to that whole season, and I felt really welcomed. It gave this production its place at the university. The next aspect of the process after the script was written was to go into pre-production. As you can see there, that is a digital production book. Usually you have a binder for a film major, for a producer, that contains everything. As you can see, there's the budget, the crew, the call sheets, and that kind of encompasses everything that needed to be done really during this pre-production process. During this process, I held cast calls to actors from around Boston. I needed 2 older actors who were not from BU. The rest of the actors, I held auditions for that STAMP class, which was made of performers. And they auditioned, and then I cast from within. I also got my director, my theatrical director, our co-director, from that class as well, and she's a directing kind of concentration in the theater arts. And that was Laura Detweiler, and she was really helpful throughout the process. She kind of gave what I wrote some new meaning, which I think is really important when you're working with any kind of theatrical art or cinematic art. I also had to scout locations. We had 18 locations, and to coordinate that with 7 cast members, plus extras, plus production assistants, plus my director of photography, who I will now talk about, Yana Harris, who is an incredible cinematographer. She graciously volunteered her time to this production, and this production couldn't have gone on without her. She was wonderful. One issue I kind of had was creating a budget. I had to create a budget with my proposal for this entire Keystone. So that kind of immediately caused an issue because I didn't have a script. I didn't know how much it would cost. So I kind of wrote the script with my budget in mind. Most of the budget went to projection equipment. Projections cost a lot. And I had 3 5x10 feet projection screens in this black box theater within the CFA. And with the CFA, when I secured the theater, that came with all the lights, all the sound equipment, all those things that you need to put on a theatrical production. This is an example of a call sheet, and I had to make one of these for each of the 10 days of shooting, which detailed the schedule, all the information. One important suggestion, make sure your actors read these call sheets, or else they won't go to the right location at the right time, which happened twice. Next, we entered into production, where I had to create the shooting schedule, which for 10 days of shooting and 18 locations with these production assistants, which we usually had 2 or 3 per shoot. Some days we had 10 extras working on this. So it was really this collaborative process that kind of pushed this project forward. I also needed to sign out $38,000 worth of production equipment, film equipment, which is a lot, but luckily with the College of Communication, you have access to all of that for free. I also had to ask everybody to sign release forms. As the acting producer on this production, I wanted to make sure that I had the rights to show this. I didn't want people coming up to me after and saying, you can't use this footage anymore, or else I would have been kind of out of luck for this. So here are just some stills from while we were on production, in production. This is in Studio East in Com, where we filmed all the in-your-head kind of stuff, which was pretty cool. And this is in an apartment. My friends let me use their apartment because it looked way nicer than mine. And that is the main character's mother. And here's some more. We shot some ducks. It was cool. And we shot outside the MFA, another cool thing. Another challenge during this entire process was the fact that it was freezing cold when we were shooting. So that was fun. After we got all the footage shot, all 10 days of shooting, we entered into post-production, where I was also the editor. And first I had to import and transcode and label. So this is about 25 hours of footage that I had to kind of evaluate as if it was viable for the actual production. And I had to label it to kind of figure out what I'm doing. With something that has 3 screens that have different things going on all of them, I needed to try a new way of editing. And the way of editing that I found that was successful for me was to edit all 3 screens in one timeline, choose which one I'm seeing at the time, and then duplicate that sequence and delete the ones for the screens that were not being used, or not that sequence's file. So that was actually, it worked out really well. Then I had to kind of, in the post-production process, I realized there's no music. So I asked a friend of mine, a music composition major in the College of Fine Arts, a freshman, if he would be willing to compose this production for me for free. And he graciously agreed. There was a lot of that kind of gracious agreement, which was great, because the soundtrack for this production, which was all original, turned out to be really awesome. And I was impressed with all his work, with everyone's work on this production. Next thing that was important was color correction, and I'll go more into that on the next slide, but I also want to touch upon codec export and programming into QLab. QLab is the program that we use to run the projection, which I wasn't aware of. I wasn't sure if I was going to use that program because I've never done projection. So I researched kind of different programs, and it really came down to this and another one. But I talked to one student in the College of Fine Arts who did kind of focus his time on projectionist. I don't know. He has his own company in New York, and he's very successful. Matthew Haber, awesome dude. And so he kind of gave me tips on what to research, what to do, how to go about all this entire process. And then I had to choose the codec export that kind of worked the best with the projections. The size of the file was an issue, the color, how it linked up with the projection. So after I found the one that worked right, which basically happened the day before the show, I exported all the footage and programmed it into a few slides later. This is kind of my example of color correction. I don't know if you guys can really see the difference, but pretty much every shot kind of needed this like add of realism. And we kind of shot it so we wouldn't have to color correct it that much, but as everything is, it came out differently on projection than it did on my screen. So then this brings me to rehearsals. So the rehearsal process for this production was really, really strange because it was only a 12-minute production, and it had 3 screens where we didn't have projectors until 2 days before the show. So rehearsing this on Wednesdays and Fridays just really kind of focused on the blocking. We added a stage manager, Sarah Lowe, who helped run the entire show and was invaluable to the process. But the real challenge was incorporating those film aspects. There are some parts of this production that required an actor to kind of have a conversation with someone who was pre-filmed, a FaceTime conversation, which I'll show you more when we get to the production stills. This is QLab, which is the program that I ran the show on. This is not a screenshot. It's just something I found on Google, but that's basically what my screen looked like while the 3 projections were running. And then load-in happened. We weren't able to get into our space until the morning of. So we got there at 7 a.m. on April 11th, worked through the day, rehearsed for the first time with projections, and timed it all out, and really got the whole thing ready for that production, that performance at 6 p.m. We had to assemble these screens, which were insane. We had to position the projectors, kind of keystone them, and then keystone, and then we got to rehearse in the space and prepare for the performance. Here are some production stills. The methods, I kind of used one of my methods for each of the scenes. So for this one, this was kind of a montage on 3 screens. We have before he finds out he's dying. By the way, the play was about a young man accepting his own mortality. So that's before he finds out he's dying. That's the voice in his head, and that is after he finds out he's dying. In this still, we have him having a conversation with, or trying to get his mother to answer her phone, but this was kind of used to just show a different location, which was important. Here we have his character profile, which was important, especially when adding that exposition aspect that you can get in film that truly doesn't happen very often in theater. Here is a dual perspective shot that we had, and so it's as if we have 2 over-the-shoulder shots, but one of them is live. In this one, we have practical. I didn't come up with fancy names for these, but this is my way of saying it. This was just a practical kind of mirror shot. She's putting on lipstick and seeing her own reflection in that mirror, which I should have flipped the video around for the production because she's actually a lefty and she had to use her right hand on stage. And then we added a documentary aspect, filmed improv, which I thought added kind of a different element to the production, which interviewees were asked the question, what would you do if you were told you were dying? In here we had an example of live filming on stage and the FaceTime phone call. Here we have his inner thoughts right as he's, and the location here. Here we had two perspectives at the same time on both screens, and in that shot, he went off stage and onto the screen. I gotta hurry up. Here we have a moving background with his inner thoughts on each of the other screens, and here we have Halo. Oh, there we go. Next production, next presentation. Let me know if you have any questions.